Hello, welcome back, my friend, to the magical Sri Lanka journey, 30-day journey. We are on episode 7. And if you remember where we last left off, it was with the power of music, the spiritual pilgrimage, fear, and humor. Oh, that was such a great story about the wild pigs and Rory. We were remembering it yesterday with a friend of ours. Now, this story today, I love this story because this story it contains within it an understanding. I think that's the best way to describe it. An understanding of the anatomy of a calling. The anatomy of a calling. What is a calling? What does it mean when we have a calling? How does it feel? What does it mean if we act on the calling? How do we know how do we understand a calling versus a voice of fear or of say like irresponsible, overly risky action? Okay, so I'll start with the story, and then you can feel for yourself and reflect for yourself. What does it feel like when you receive a calling? What do you do about it? And what happens when you don't do anything about it? Okay, so this journey starts off actually back at Gallavilla. So we're going back in time a little bit. Gallavilla was the beautiful boutique hotel on top of the Crystal Mountain. As we were enjoying our few days there, and I was feeling I was just sort of barely scratching the surface of receiving the energy of the land, of receiving the messages of the land through the food, through the people, through the creatures and the critters, through the smells, the sights, the spices, all of this. And what I knew, and it really was a knowing, it was like, it felt like this in my system. Tiffany, you need to bring Westerners here because the medicine of this place is important for the inner separation that people who have grown up in Western conditioned environments need. Western conditioned environments are the conditioning of how do I say this? The conditioning of the West, this is a gross oversimplification, but the conditioning of the West is built upon I think, therefore I am, Descartes, and this emphasis of the mind and the progressive disconnect between the mind or the head and the heart or the body. And here I was in Sri Lanka at that point in time, having taught earth element in the Chinese 5 elements. I had been teaching the Chinese 5 elements for years and years. And earth element is one of the elements in the Chinese 5 elements. Here I had been teaching it at the university, teaching it to other professionals, again, for years. And while I was in Sri Lanka that first time, I had this sort of humbling, full body kind of reckoning that I actually didn't know shit about earth element. That everything that I knew was in my head. And it's not that that isn't true, and that's certainly one way of knowing. But there was an irony in this because earth element is very much about being in the flesh, being in the body, this, Tiffany in this body, experiencing this body, this flesh. Earth element is about receiving and giving and tasting and pooping and nourishment at all the different levels. And my relationship to all of this was a very heady one. I could teach all day long about earth element. Sri Lanka was giving me, and still gives me, by the way, a kind of reordering in my cellular structure in relationship to earth element. What it is, how it exists within me, the medicine of sweetness. What does it mean to be integrated? What is integrity? What is sacred reciprocity? What is my relationship to needs and nourishment and neediness? So here I was at the Gala Villa, the beautiful boutique hotel, and I received this, I call it like the voice of God. And sometimes these voices over my life have come in an auditory way, like I hear it in my head. And sometimes it comes just as a full body knowing. And the full body knowing was like a mandate. You must bring Western conditioned people here for this medicine. Immediately after I received that mandate, that calling, that's a calling, I went down to the front desk of Galavilla and I talked to the manager and I said, I want to bring a group of people here in 6 months. Can I do that? Can I rent out the whole hotel? And he was like, oh, yes, madam. And he kind of giggled and how I perceived it was he didn't take me really that seriously. Like, oh, okay. And I said, look, I'm going to go back. I'm going to start planning this. I'm going to go back. I'll book the exact dates with you. Actually, I think while I was there, this is true. While I was there, we went ahead and blocked off the dates and he said he would hold them blocked for X amount of days, but then I needed to send money to keep the block. Okay, great. This receiving a calling, receiving a knowing, and then taking direct, swift, and appropriate right action in relationship to it is one of the things that has served me so deeply over my years of being a creator. Like I am forever grateful at how this capacity has come online in my life and how I continue to nourish it by receiving the callings, acting on the callings, receiving the callings, acting on the callings. It strengthens a muscle between me and my own inner oracle, between me and my own higher dimensions of self, between me and my higher guidance, between me and the land. So 6 months after we left, I brought a group of people back for a retreat at Galavilla. And it was a splendid, 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 beautiful retreat that we actually called Remembering Earth. And the rest of the retreat came in as a beautiful download of who I wanted to work with in the retreat, kind of who were the people that we were calling in for it, what was the medicine that wanted to be delivered while we were here, how was it going to be delivered. Without overthinking any of it, it was more like a dance and a flow and a communication with the land, with that property, with the people that spirit or the universe was calling in for it. Prior to this time, and actually right around this time, it was starting in 2015 when I started my Master Healer in-person programs. I was teaching retreats and leading retreats, but all in the United States. To do this in another country was a whole other order of business. And the magical part that I want to share with you here is, had it not been a calling, the land speaking and calling, me answering the call and continuing to answer it, had it not been that, I'm pretty sure I would have just fizzled out somewhere in there. A fear would have come in about, oh my gosh, I'm going to put this money down and nobody's going to come. And then what, or any number of the fears that can happen. And it would have fizzled out. It would have lost its momentum. But because all that was extending out from this was squarely rooted in the calling, this idea came through a calling. I just kept returning to that knowing, and I could feel that knowing as a reference point in my body because of what I experienced when Rory and I were here in 2015. So this is the joy of a calling. This is the potency of a calling that comes from a specific land. And this is also such a beautiful story that demonstrates the soulful strength and soulful potency that we can develop when we allow ourselves to risk, allow ourselves to adventure, allow ourselves to receive a calling, and then allow ourselves to risk again to act on that calling. I just love it so much. So now, in closing, really, I just want to show a few pictures from that time. So these pictures that I'm actually getting ready to share with you. Oh, it's so funny because the first picture that's going to come up is actually not from Sri Lanka, but that's okay. This is Rory. Hold on, let's see. This was actually right before we left for the trip. Okay. So this is now coming back 6 months later. Here we are again at the Green Olive Villa, which was the very first place that we landed the first time that we came to Sri Lanka. Here is my beloved friend and fellow colleague, Summer Kwashi, and myself and Rory. And Summer came as a co-facilitator, co-leader with me. And we had such a joyful, powerful experience doing this together. Rory in the rain. There is me and Lula, who is Summer's amazingly magical daughter. She looks much different than that now because she's a teenager. Little table outside at Galavilla. Some of the beautiful staff that welcomed us and our guests. Lula. This is the chef. Oh, I love this man so much. I wanted to just kiss him on the cheeks all the time. Just a delightful, kind, gentle human being. And he did cooking classes for us, several, if I remember correctly, while we were there. Look at this. This is I think they call this okay, if any of my Sri Lankan friends are watching this, put in the comments what this is called. But I think it's called a snake gourd. Snake gourd, I think. It's delicious. See, it's cut up here. Look at the color of the Sri Lankan spices. It's so majestic, these colors. Cinnamon, clove, chili, turmeric, cumin. I think those are mustard seeds, maybe. Here we are, the group that gathered for this retreat. Oh, so special. Summer and I. This is actually, I wanted you to see that this, remember I said that the mountain was actually a quartz mountain? This is just on the road that you're walking. These are all pieces of quartz, just chunks of quartz. Here's the top where the quarry is. Some more photos, views of the place. Okay, so from there, we actually went on a trip to visit where, actually, it was on our first trip in Sri Lanka that we found quite magically. We just kept asking people, where can we find someone who distills essential oils? And we were misunderstood in any measure of ways. We went on all kinds of goose hunts and wild chases to try to find quote unquote essential oil producers. And we finally got connected with an amazing company. They're now 3 generations of distilling organic essential oils, EOAS. I believe we'll see a slide about them in a moment. And we got to visit their headquarters outside of Colombo. And then we got to visit a couple of their places where they do the distilling. Now, this is actually moringa leaf, if I remember correctly. And it's not, they're not making essential oil out of it. It becomes like a super green food. But it was really cool to visit where they were working and see. And this particular company, they're doing such great works within the country of Sri Lanka while they're also distilling the essential oils. That company is still our main, we import from them for our company, monara.org. If you want to check that out, www.monara.org. Yeah, check out our coriander seed, our cinnamon, cinnamon bark, cinnamon leaf, the black pepper, the vetiver, the lemongrass. I think that's a pepper plant there. Cinnamon. some ginger maybe down here. Pepper, little peppers starting to grow. Look. Maybe that's some lemongrass, cardamom, cinnamon trees. Ah, yes, here you go. EOAS Organics. And that's the company. Okay, I'll stop here in this particular journey, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next stage in this beautiful journey. And I can't wait. I can't wait. This process for me has been so sweet because as I go back through these photos, I get to feel the fullness of gratitude just oozing out of me for every single step of this journey, recognizing and taking in and being nourished by every part of it. I hope that you can feel and receive some of that nourishment as well. All right, from my heart to yours, like and share if you have enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next episode.